I need you to do something for me right now. Stop what you're doing and actually look around. Look at your life, the relationships, the bank account, the happiness, or the complete lack of it. What if I told you something that might blow your mind? Everything you're seeing right now, the good, the bad, the ugly, isn't happening because of your circumstances. It's happening because of your programming. Most people spend their entire lives thinking life just happens to them. They think they're victims of the economy, victims of how they were raised, victims of bad luck. But here's the truth bomb I'm dropping on you today. The war you're fighting isn't out there in the world. The war is happening right between your ears. You're not struggling because you're weak. You're struggling because you're rehearsing failure in your mind 1,000 times before you even get out of bed in the morning. You've got to understand something. Your mind is literally the most powerful computer ever created. But here's the problem. It didn't come with a user manual. So most of you're running it on autopilot. And when you're on autopilot, you default to fear. You default to worry. You default to straight up survival mode. You're constantly replaying old memories of pain and then projecting them into your future. And then you're sitting there wondering why your life feels like a broken record on repeat. Listen to me. You are the architect of your own joy and the architect of your own misery. Every single thing you see in the physical world started as a thought in the invisible world. If you don't like the harvest you're reaping, you need to stop staring at the fruit and start looking at the seeds you planted. You can't plant thorns in your mind and expect to harvest roses in your life. It's time to fire that negative narrator in your head and take back the steering wheel of your own existence. Let's talk about what I call the blueprint principle. Imagine for a second you're standing in front of this massive empty lot where they're about to build a skyscraper. Now, before a single shovel hits the dirt, before any concrete gets poured, before any steel goes up, that building is already finished. It's finished on paper. It's finished in the architect's mind. Every beam, every window, every electrical outlet, every staircase, it's all decided and defined before it physically exists. Your life works the exact same way, my friend. You're the architect, and your thoughts are the blueprint. The problem with most people? They're trying to build a mansion of a life while holding a blueprint for a shack. You say you want financial freedom. You say you want a happy marriage. You say you want to make an impact. But your mental blueprint, those thoughts you're entertaining all day long, is drawn with ink made of worry, doubt, and limitation. You cannot build a castle if you're constantly drawing a prison in your mind. Here's what you need to understand. Your subconscious mind is like a contractor. It takes the plans you give it and it builds them. It doesn't judge the plan. It doesn't look at your blueprint of anxiety and go, hey, I don't think you really want this panic attack. Nope. It just looks at your dominant thoughts and says, okay, that's what they're ordering. And it gets to work delivering it. If you stand in front of a mirror thinking I'm unworthy, you're drafting blueprints for rejection. If you wake up thinking I'll never get ahead, you're drafting blueprints for poverty. You can work hard, really grind 18 hours a day, but if your internal blueprint says failure, you will eventually sabotage your own hard work to match the picture in your head. You cannot outperform your own self-image. You just can't. This is why you see lottery winners lose it all in 2 years. Their bank account changed, but their blueprint didn't. They still had a poverty mindset, so they unconsciously destroyed the wealth to get back to the level of their thinking. You have to realize that a thought isn't just some fleeting thing that floats through your head like a cloud. A thought is a thing. It has substance. It's energy. When you think a thought over and over again, you're etching a groove into your brain. You're laying a foundation. You've got to stop being a passive observer of your thoughts and start being the foreman of your construction site. Look at the plans you're drawing every morning and ask yourself, do I want to live in the house that these thoughts are building? If the answer is no, you don't just change the drapes. You have to tear up the blueprint and draw something completely new. Now let's move to the second thing, and this is where it gets real. I want you to imagine your mind as a plot of incredibly fertile land. The soil is rich, it's dark, and it's ready to produce an abundance of whatever you plant in it. But here's the critical lesson about this soil. It's completely impartial. The earth doesn't care what you plant. It doesn't judge the seed. If you dig a hole and plant corn, the earth returns corn. But if you dig a hole right next to it and plant nightshade, a deadly poison, the earth doesn't say, "Wait a minute, I shouldn't grow this because it'll hurt people." No, the earth will return that poison just as abundantly and faithfully as it returns the food. Your mind operates with the exact same neutrality. It doesn't discriminate between a constructive thought and a destructive one. It simply takes what you give it, incubates it, and reproduces it in your reality. You can't sow thoughts of anger, resentment, and fear all day long, and then wake up surprised when your life is full of conflict and anxiety. The law of the harvest is absolute. You reap exactly what you sow, not what you hope for. But here's the dangerous catch to this garden thing that you need to understand. While valuable crops like corn or wheat require daily attention, watering, fertilizing, protection, weeds, they require absolutely zero effort. You don't have to plan to grow weeds, they just show up. If you leave a garden alone and do nothing, you won't get an empty plot of dirt. You'll get a jungle of chaos, negativity, doubt, mediocrity. These are the weeds of the mind. They're like airborne seeds floating around in the atmosphere of the world we live in. If you're not actively cultivating your mind, if you're not waking up every morning intentionally planting seeds of gratitude, ambition, and faith, then you're automatically giving permission for the weeds to take over. Most people aren't bad gardeners. They're just absent gardeners. They let the news, their negative friends, their past failures toss seeds over the fence into their garden, and then they wonder why their life is a tangled mess of thorns. You have to realize you're the master gardener of your soul. You've got to stand at the gate of your mind with a shovel in one hand and a watering can in the other, and make the conscious decision that if a thought doesn't bear good fruit, it doesn't get to take root in your soil. This brings us to the third thing, and honestly, this one's the sneakiest of them all. I call it the silent saboteur. You see, you're not alone in your own body. There's a voice in your head that never stops talking, from the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep. It narrates your life, comments on everything you see. But for most of you, this internal narrator isn't your cheerleader. It's your worst critic. I want you to imagine for a second that you had a roommate living in your house who followed you around all day saying the things you say to yourself. Imagine a roommate who looked at you while you're getting dressed and said, "You look terrible today." Imagine they sat next to you at work whispering, "You're gonna mess this up. You're not as smart as them." If a real person spoke to you that way, you'd kick them out of your house immediately, right? You wouldn't tolerate that level of abuse from an enemy, yet you tolerate it from yourself all day long. This silent saboteur is the accumulation of every negative thing you've ever heard, every fear you've ever felt, every limitation that was placed on you as a child. It runs in the background like a computer virus, eating up your processing power and corrupting your potential. The dangerous part? Because this voice sounds like you think it is you. You mistake your trauma for your identity. You think, "I'm just an anxious person," or "I'm just not good with money." No, you're not. You're a person who has practiced the thought of anxiety and the thought of lack so many times that it's become an automated script. The saboteur loves the comfort zone. Its entire job is to keep you safe, and to the subconscious mind, safe just means familiar. Even if your familiar life is miserable, the saboteur prefers it over the unknown of success. This is why you self-sabotage right when things are about to get good. Have you ever noticed that? You start a diet, and 3 days in, the voice says, "One cookie won't hurt." You start a new relationship, and the voice says, "They're gonna leave you anyway, so you better push them away first." It's the governor on your engine. It limits how fast you can go. You might have your foot on the gas pedal of your life. That's your conscious desire to change. But the silent saboteur has the parking brake pulled all the way up. You're burning rubber, making noise, exhausting yourself. But you're not moving forward because you're fighting against your own internal programming. You have to learn to dissociate from this voice. You've got to realize that just because a thought walks into your brain doesn't mean you have to offer it a chair and a cup of tea. You can observe the thought, recognize it as the saboteur trying to keep you small, and simply let it pass without agreeing with it. Now let's look at the fourth key. And this is where we stop looking at thoughts as just abstract concepts and realize they're biological triggers. You need to understand the physics of your own existence. There's a specific order to how human beings function, and you can't violate this order. It goes like this. Your thoughts create your emotions. Your emotions drive your actions. Your actions produce your results. Most people are unhappy with their results, so they try to attack the problem at the level of action. They try to force themselves to work harder. They try to force themselves to be disciplined. They use willpower to change their behavior, but they fail every single time. Why? Because they're trying to change the fruit without changing the root. They're trying to change what they're doing without changing how they're feeling. And they can't change how they're feeling because they haven't changed what they're thinking. Your body is the servant of your mind. The moment you think a thought, your brain releases a chemical to match that thought. If you think a thought of fear, worry, or insecurity, your brain instantly signals your body to release cortisol and stress hormones. Your heart rate changes, your energy drops, your posture slumps. In that state of chemical negativity, you're physically incapable of taking bold, confident action. You're paralyzed. On the other hand, if you think a thought of victory, gratitude, or certainty, your brain releases dopamine and serotonin. You feel strong. You feel capable. And when you feel capable, you take massive action. You don't have to force it. It flows out of you naturally. The action is just the echo of the emotion, and the emotion is just the echo of the thought. This is why willpower is such a temporary fix. Willpower is you trying to fight your own chemistry. It's you trying to act like a winner while thinking like a loser. You can sustain that for a few days, maybe a week, but eventually, your internal reality will override your external effort. You cannot white-knuckle your way to a better life. If you want to change the result, the money, the health, the career, you have to go all the way back to the start of the assembly line. You have to interrupt the pattern at the thought level. You've got to understand that every time you indulge in a negative thought, you were literally dosing yourself with a chemical that makes success impossible. You're poisoning the water supply before it even reaches the village. If you want to change what your hands are doing, you must first change what your heart is feeling. And the only way to dictate your feelings is to take absolute command over the thoughts you allow to play on the screen of your mind. Finally, we come to the fifth and arguably most important discipline you'll ever master, the duty of the gatekeeper. You have to realize you're the absolute ruler of a kingdom, and that kingdom is your mind. But a kingdom without walls isn't a kingdom. It's common ground where anyone can walk in and destroy what you've built. Most of you treat your minds like a public highway. You let everything pass through. You let the news media drive their trucks of fear right through your living room. You let your negative coworkers dump their garbage complaints onto your front lawn. You let social media scroll past your eyes for hours, filling your head with comparison and inadequacy. You would never leave the front door of your physical house wide open at night for strangers to walk in and steal your TV, right? Yet you leave the door of your mind wide open 24/7 for the world to steal your peace, your confidence, your focus. You must understand that every single thing you see, hear, and read is an entry. It's a seed being dropped into that soil we talked about. And once it's in, it's in. You can't unhear a negative comment. You can't unsee a terrifying image. The only way to protect the garden is to stop the seed at the gate. This means you have to become a vigilant security guard for your own soul. You have to check the ID of every thought and every conversation that tries to enter your space. When the news starts screaming that the economy is crashing, you have to stop it at the door and say, that may be true for the world, but I'm not letting that fear live in my house. When a friend calls you up to gossip and complain, you have to be strong enough to say, I can't participate in this because I can't afford to have that negativity in my spirit. This isn't about being ignorant. It's about being selective. It's about understanding that your mind is the factory where your future is produced, and you can't create a high-quality product if you're using low-quality raw materials. If you fill the factory with junk, you're going to produce a junk life. Standing guard is a full-time job. It means you have to be ruthless with your environment. You might have to turn off the TV. You might have to unfollow certain accounts. You might even have to distance yourself from certain people who constantly drain your battery. It sounds harsh, I know, but you have to decide what's more important, their feelings or your destiny. You can't afford to be casual about this anymore. You have to stand at the threshold of your mind with a weapon in your hand and refuse entry to anything that doesn't serve the vision of the life you're trying to build.